Alright guys, take a knee, drink water, and listen up. For the first episode of my Take a Knee series, I have my first question from an Anthony. Anthony is a 16-year-old junior in high school. He's interested in joining the United States Army. I believe he wants to go Army Reserve, and he wants to go to IT, which is Information Technology support. And fortunately for him, he's battling with unsupportive parents. And this might be something for some of you might hit home with, because you might be dealing with the same thing. I know I did at one point when I was looking to join. And for this episode, I'm going to go over maybe a couple things you can do to try to get through to your parents. Maybe not even get through, but at least get onto a level playing ground with them, to ease that bit of tension and make forward progress, rather than just being stagnant and constantly getting in these arguments where you really don't get anywhere. So that's what I'll go over. For this episode, I have also talked to a buddy of mine who's a staff sergeant in the Marine Corps. He's an active duty staff sergeant, and he's volunteered to give a few wise words to guys like you, and put his input in. Of course, he's asked for his identity to remain anonymous, so I will refer to him as Staff Sergeant X. So I'll kick off the video in now. Alright, so for those of you that don't know, I have been in the military for about 4 years now, I'm pretty sure. I'm in the Army National Guard. I am a fucking new guy, FMG, with a LRS unit, which is long range surveillance. I literally just made the tryout not too long ago, so I'm still really new there. I really, have a lot to learn, and by no means am I, a complete old head to that type of unit, but that's where I am now. When I was younger, I actually dealt with unsupportive parents myself. I always knew I wanted to serve since a very young age, since I was about 6 years old. And, growing up, my parents kind of figured, he'll grow out of it, until, the oh crap moment hit them when I was 16, almost 17, and I was like, hey, I want to join. And, they still kind of thought it was a joke. They didn't really take it seriously, and then they actually realized, holy crap, this kid actually wants to join the military. So that definitely fostered quite a bit of tension. And, I realized, and I think it's important for all you guys to realize who might be going through the same thing, that you're having this tension because they are your parents, and they love you, and they want the best for you. It's not because they want to push you down, or they don't want you to they don't want you to succeed, because I have faith in, 95, 96, 97, 98% of parents, if they are pushing back against it, it's because they care about you, and they want the best for you. And in their defense, probably a lot of their fears they don't really hold very much water, because the military is a really interesting place where, someone who might be a civilian might not have that insight into the military, and of no fault of their own. It's just a secluded organization, whereas unless you'd been there, or you knew someone who was there that you really spoke to, you really can't get that good of an idea of how things are done, unless you actually had some reason to be close to that lifestyle for which reason. So recognize that also with parents. So a couple things I want to go over. Joining when you're 17. The Army does this thing where you can enlist when you're 17. I'm pretty sure the Marines doesn't do it. They require you to be 18, and every other branch requires you to be 18 at the point of when you enlist. The Army, however, allows you to either join as a split option or delayed entry when you're 17. Although the caveat to that is that you have to have your parents sign off and give you the go-ahead. Of course, you can always wait a little bit, and you can wait a year and you can sign off yourself when you're 18. But you know, if your parents are willing, you can get an extra year time in service. And you know, if you want to do it that bad, then yeah, go ahead and join when you're 17. I will warn you that, you know, even though I joined when I was 17, and bear in mind when I speak, I'm not speaking on the behalf of the United States Army or the Department of Defense or anything. These opinions are solely my own. In no way am I, you know, trying to represent the military in any way, shape, or form. But, you know, I think that joining when you're 17 isn't really that smart. I joined when I was 17. I was incredibly immature. I went through all of basic. I graduated basic 10 days before I turned 18. And, you know, in hindsight, you know, honestly, I should have waited an extra year. It's really crazy to, you know, in hindsight, to look back on what that extra year time does to your mind. But, you know, what's done is done now. But, you know, in hindsight, I realized that during when I was 17, honestly, it probably, it put me back a little bit further than it put me forward. Just in the fact that, you know, there was a lot more mature people around me. I had grown out of the high school mindset a little bit, but being that I was a split option guy, right after I kind of got indoctrinated into that military way of thinking, I'll say, you know, they spit me back in high school, and then, you know, there I go, I'm back into the civilian life, per se. And you gotta bear in mind, like, when you go through basic training and you get out, you know, you're gonna be arrogant, you're gonna think you're the coolest thing to ever, you know, grace the earth, when really you haven't done anything. I mean, you know, it's great to get through basic training, but in the big picture, the only thing you've done is to earn the right to wear the uniform, and that's it. So, you know, bear that in mind when you guys get out of basic. So when I was actually looking to join, you know, me and my parents, we argued a lot before they realized, like, okay, this guy is serious. And even when they realized that, I argued a lot with them, and it would just be over the silliest of things, until finally my mother literally broke down and cried right in front of me. And you know, she just said in tears, you know, it's just, I'm sorry, you know, it's just because I'm honestly scared. Like, I don't want you to go off. I don't want you to go and die. I don't want you to go away. Blah, blah, blah. And all of these fears are completely and utterly understandable. So just remember that. So a couple suggestions before I bring Staff Sergeant X into the picture and let him give his input, I have is to, one, try to sit down and speak with your parents. A lot of times I find that people, you know, especially younger guys, you know, you might have so much information, or you want to sit down and speak with your parents, but they might not take you seriously. Why? Because you might be 16, and they might feel like, oh, well, I'm an adult, I don't need to sit down and speak with my 16-year-old child. And, you know, and depending on what kind of family you are, you know, you might not be afforded that opportunity. But if at all possible, sit down and speak with your parents about how about what you want to do, why you want to do it, and exactly what your plan is. Every bit that you can reassure your parents that you've made an adult decision, and which it is, because it's going to be something that, you know, when you go there and you sign up, you will write a living will, and you will, you know, put a name on a piece of paper saying, in the case that if you die, you know, who's your stuff going to go to. That's one of the first things you do. So, you know, anybody who would tell you it's not an adult decision, they're lying. I'm not saying you're necessarily going to die, but, you know, you do go off and you do write that down. That's one of the first things you do. So try and sit them down and speak with your parents, you know, whether it's one of them, two of them, or, you know, whoever. And you want to put your feelings on the table and make them understand, like I said before, that you're making an adult decision and you've done your research, and, you know, make them recognize the fact that this isn't just you going off on a whim for some feeling of patriotism or whatever, that you want to go join the military. Because to your parents, you know, they don't see patriotism, they're not going to see he wants to wear the uniform. The only thing, chances are, they see is the chance of you going off to a foreign country, fighting foreign men, even if you're not going to do a combat arms job, and the potential of you dying. All they see is you being carried by 6 men. And, you know, for you know, a good reason. You know, I'd be scared too. If I was a parent and I wasn't in the military, and my kid said he wanted to join the military, I'd be scared too. So number two, you want to hear them out for their fears. Just as much you want them to hear you, they want you to hear them. Even though you guys aren't on the same level, because they're your parents and you're the kid, you need to obviously respect them because they are your parents. But you need to also make them recognize that you understand their point of view also. If they fear that you're gonna go off and be fighting and go die or something, then talk to them about that. If you're gonna go combat arms or infantry or something like that, you need to don't sugarcoat it and lie to them. Let them know that the point is you're gonna go off and get the best training possible, so that if one day you do get deployed, that you can go down range, and you have the best training possible, and you're with the guys who the best possible guys to your left and your right, and you can complete your mission and come home. But at the same time, don't lie to them and be like, oh, there's no chance I'm not going to get deployed or anything like that, because that's a lie. Most everyone in the military, you have a higher chance of getting deployed, if not to a combat zone, to somewhere, than not getting deployed at all. If you're going to be doing a support job or something like that, especially in the Army or in the reserves or something like that, your chance of going out to do combat missions is significantly lower than, say, doing a non-combatant job in, say, the Marine Corps. Whereas in the Marine Corps, just like that ever so known phrase, every Marine is a rifleman. It doesn't matter if you're a cook, if you are in a flight company, if you are a janitor, you have when push comes to shove, you might be called out to go out with the line unit and go out with the infantry. That's something which is very specific to the Marine Corps. Now, that's not to go to say that for some reason, being an IT guy, you might get called to go out and directly support an infantry company. I'm not saying you're going to be the first man through a door, but you might be put in more harm's way than sitting back at a fob and sitting in an office and doing your job. And even if you are sitting back at a fob and at an office and doing your job, that's not to say that there's absolutely no chance that you're not going to get seriously hurt or injured there either. However, you realize that your chance of getting seriously hurt, injured, or killed is incredibly lower than those guys who are, say, in the infantry like me or other guys who are going out and their mission is to close with, engage, and destroy the enemy. That's the textbook definition of what an infantryman does. So if you're not going for a combat arms job, speak to your parents and give them insight as to what you want to do for your support job. And also, give them insight into what maybe you can use that for after the military. Your parents want to know, that what you do is going to set you up for the future, not just the here and now. And that's probably any parent. So let them know that you've thought this through for more than just the military service. I know my parents, my dad specifically, was always big on having a backup plan. What if you do go in the infantry, and what if you get med boarded out? What are you going to do then? What if you go in the infantry and you get deployed and you do, end up losing a leg or two legs, or, get hurt? What are you going to do then? What if you're not qualified for the infantry? What if, you can only take a support job? Or what if you're not qualified for the military at all? What are you going to do? So always have a backup plan, and let your parents know that too. Definitely have a backup plan too. And that's for anything. That's not just the military. All right. Anything in life, have a backup plan of action. You'll learn that in the military too. Your squad, you get to an ORP, your reconnaissance element goes out and gets eyes on the objective. In ACOA, you guys will learn in the future. For those of you guys that go to the infantry, one of them is what to do if I don't come back. So things like that. Have a backup plan. I can't stress that enough. So with that said, I'll touch on one more thing. Find a good recruiter. And this is easier. I won't say it's easier said than done, because there are good recruiters out there. But I don't know how to put it. I mean, I'll give you guys a couple tips. One, take someone who's already in the military, not someone who's a private. Take someone who is in the military and has been in the military for a while with you to a recruiter. That's a huge help. I'm not saying all recruiters are bad guys, because they're not. The majority of recruiters are good guys, but also bear in mind that they have a job to do. I'm not saying that they have a quota, because they don't. However, recruiters, if 5 recruiters work in an office and 4 out of the 5 recruiters have put 8 guys in the military that month, which is a really high number, and this one recruiter has put 2 guys in the military that month, he doesn't have a quota, but he's gonna be looked at by his chain of command and say, hey man, what are you doing? Why are all these guys able to put guys in and you're not? And some first line leaders are going to be harder on guys than others. So bear that in mind, that they don't have quotas, but they do have a job to do, and it is their job at the end of the day to put guys in the military. One, take someone with you to the military, to the recruiter who's either been in the military or who is, and they can either say that they've been in the military or not, but just a trusted friend to have there, just to cross-reference what you're told. And he or she might pick up something that you don't, and that could be something that can be huge when it comes down to eventually signing a contract, making sure that you're on the same page with your recruiter. Another thing I would definitely stress is speak to multiple recruiters. All right, that's something that's pretty big too. Even if you go to one recruiter, speak to a recruiter 3 towns over, and speak to another recruiter who's 5 towns over. Why? Because one recruiter might have completely different answers than another recruiter, and it might not be because one is lying to you or telling you the wrong stuff. There might honestly be different answers for the same question, and in some instances, one recruiter may have outdated information, or one recruiter may have honestly straight up lied. Probably not as likely, but it happens. So that's why I would always suggest having multiple recruiters and stacking up your information, and then bringing it back to a friend, or putting together the information you have and whatever. Lastly, I would definitely suggest make this a family process. Yeah, you can go ahead and wait till you're 18 and do it on your own, but if you're going to do it when you're 17, or if you want your parents to be a part of it, make them a part of it. Let them speak to the recruiter. Let them ask questions, because they're going to have questions about you joining the military. But also bear in mind that you have to. This is about you becoming an adult, and once you get off that white bus, the journey to adulthood is going to go exponentially faster than it would have gone otherwise, and that's something that you'll come to learn should you enlist and you step off that white bus at basic training, wherever it may be. With that said, I'm gonna hand it over to Staff Sergeant X. I'll call him once again. He's a Staff Sergeant in the Marine Corps. He's been in a few years. He's been deployed multiple times. Combat deployments to, I believe, Iraq and Afghanistan. I know Iraq for sure. I haven't spoken to him about anything in Afghanistan, but I'm pretty sure he's been there too. So I will let you guys hear what he has to say, because in his experience and being in the Marine Corps, and being a being a staff NCO, he might have a completely different mindset regarding this compared to me. I'm an E4 in the National Guard. Every guy will have different opinions on how things are done and how business is conducted. So I'll drop this off for him and ask him a couple questions, and we'll see what he has to say.
All right, so Anthony, you got unsupportive parents, and that's one of your biggest roadblocks that you're trying to deal with. My perspective on that, and my advice, is that at the heart of every family, you have your parents, and as a child, and as a good child, you want to try and honor your parents, respect your parents, and at some point throughout your life, they protect you, they raise you, they do their best. Their opinions are their opinions. Opinions are yours. But at the end of the day, you're eventually going to have to leave your family. You're going to have to be able to make decisions on your own. So whenever I was growing up, I'm come from a military background. However, all my parents were in the Air Force. So my decision to join the Marine Corps, as you can guess, was a little blunt to them. They were very resistant to the idea. However, I'd already made my mind up. One day I walked in the recruiting office, after doing a couple semesters in school, realized it wasn't for me. It was overwhelming. And at that point, I already knew that I was going to be in the military. I was already going to, Air Force RTC, and I wanted to be a pilot. Well, I didn't really understand why I was going to school. And, eventually the weight of not really understanding the reasons behind why I was going to school, I ended up making the decision to join the Marine Corps, which was originally my primary decision before I decided to go to college. But it got tabled because I listened to my parents, so it kind of prolonged it. Which they had good intentions behind it. However, their wisdom set at the time was a lot different than mine. I hadn't really grown and I hadn't really matured, so that was the reason why my delay occurred. For unsupportive parents, they were unsupportive from me joining the Marine Corps because one, they may have thought that we're all brainwashed, that we're incapable of thinking for ourselves, that we're all going to be in harm's way. That's not necessarily true, but at the same token, it's not necessarily false. So you may think that I may not necessarily be, me being an IT guy, I may not necessarily be directly in combat, I may not directly be in the line of harm. However, under certain situations, my entire purpose in life is to provide the communication structure for the commander in order to talk to the warfighter, the trigger puller, that's in that harm's way. So if that requires me to go forward in a forward COC or to a forward FOB to conduct those missions, then I may possibly be in harm's way. Or I could possibly be on a ship, or I could be in garrison, not doing anything remotely, anything directly related to supporting the combat arms from that trigger puller's mindset perspective. Your parents think you may be expendable, but it's not necessarily the case. Everybody has their own specific purpose. So if you compare the military to like a vehicle, the vehicle has a mission. It's to run. It's to get somebody from point A to point B. Well, that vehicle is made up of several thousand parts, and each part has its purpose. And if you take one of those parts out of the vehicle, it may still run, but it won't be as effective. And each part you pull out of there, think of that as like a person, a specific MOS, a specific job function. So my recommendation for you for an unsupported parent is one, just to understand that they care about you, and they only have your best interests in mind. By the same token, you have to be respectful. Let them know that they've done everything that they can to get you to a certain point, and now it's time for you to make your decision as a young budding man to make that next step and figure out what your path in life is going to be. Whether that be go to school, stay in the civilian sector, do what you're going to do, or go and join the service. For whatever reason may be your reason to do that, whether it's for patriotism, whether it is to kind of serve your time for your country, to make you grow, or to get a trade, GI Bills, whatever your reason for joining it is your reason alone. But explain that to them, why it is that you want to do it, that your greater calling. You are solely responsible for your decisions throughout the course of your life, and things aren't going to happen for you unless you make that next step, meet that next challenge to accomplish that thing. Nobody's going to give you anything. Nobody's going to do things and hold your hands along the way. Once you go into the adulthood, everything is on you. So if you want to make that decision to go, your parents are going to give you that initial resistance. You make your decision, and if that decision is truly what you want at the end of the day, you step forward with it, and you look behind you, and your parents will still be there to support you in the long run, and you'll still be coming back to them. You can still have that relationship with your family. But they have to know at the end of the day, you are going to leave, you are going to make your decisions, and you're going to make that step forward to become a man, and to be a patriot and a better member of the society.
Alright guys, so there you have it. That was Staff Sergeant X. Now you have two different opinions from two different people with completely differing volumes of service. So if this helped any one of you guys, or Anthony, if you happen to see this, or anybody, I hope you could put this to good use. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. If you actually watched through this whole video, it's for you guys who are looking to join, the younger guys. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and like my social media. And if you don't, you're a racist.